Hi, I'm Dean Webb, and this is Cities Timelines. I want to talk today about taking big piles of rubble and turning them into parks. How do we get big piles of rubble? Well, that's an interesting question. The answer is it could be a natural disaster or it could be warfare. And given that we start with a blank map at the beginning of the game and a relatively late time period, it makes me wonder, is City Skylines actually a city rebuilding project where we take a place that was destroyed by war and build it back? Well, if so, we need to do something about all that rubble. These destroyed homes don't just get rebuilt on the spot. They have to be cleared away. They're structurally unsound. This business district, how do you rebuild here when you see this vast field of rubble? Yes, there's a building that survived, but the rest of it, my gosh, what do we do? And in modern days, we see the same devastation visited on places like Aleppo in Syria and the Ukraine, here, Kiev. The same kind of devastation that happened to cities all over Europe in World War II. We see people who had their lives and families completely upended by the destruction of war, a war that they never asked for. And we get an opportunity to heal them, to build back something. But in order to build back, we've got to get rid of all the rubble that's piled up. We can't build on top of that. There are very few materials in here that could be reclaimed for other buildings. So what do we do with it? Well, historically, we see the answer here in Germany. Many of Germany's cities were completely destroyed by bombing, artillery fire, or ground combat and hand-to-hand fighting in the cities. And in order to build back, they had to take all that rubble out and put it somewhere. And they created what are called Schuttbergen, or Rubble Mountains. This is one on the outskirts of Stuttgart. As you can see, it's got a wind turbine on top of it. It is higher than the surrounding terrain by several dozen meters, and that's because there's such a huge volume of rubble. When we look at Teufelsburg in Berlin, this is actually about 55 meters higher than the surrounding terrain, and those buildings on top of Teufelsburg are made by the U.S. to spy on East Berlin and East Germany. It was so high up, it was used as an observation area. Looking at another one, we see a church built as a memorial here. This one's also in Berlin. You don't have to build observation towers or radios or wind turbines on top of every Schuttberg. You don't even have to build things on top of them. This is one in Munich. It's called Olympiaburg. I think it's a rather beautiful park, and knowing that there are millions of cubic meters of rubble underneath it moved my heart. There was a lot of suffering in the destruction, a lot of suffering in the removal of the rubble, and a lot of suffering as the places where there had once been rubble were being rebuilt. It's a monument to the human ability to withstand suffering. Whether you think that the Germans brought it on themselves or not, I don't care to discuss. I just know that lots of innocent people were hurt by this, and they were the ones who had to pay the worst price of all. I'd like to build something that looks like Olympiaburg in my new city. To do so, I need to do a little bit of math. So, I went to Wikipedia and looked up Schuttberge. I didn't have to type in the U with an umlaut over it. I just typed in a regular U, and that got me there. And I see here various Schuttbergen listed, their total elevation as well as the relative height. It's the relative height that interests me most. That's going to be something where I take a level in the game and I add this relative height to it and create the center of the Schuttberg. As we can see, they have a conical form, and for many of them we get the volume. So for example, this one here in if you look at Frankfurt am Main, it says Monte Scherbalino is 47 meters above the relative area, and it has 10 to 12 million cubic meters. Well, knowing that the volume of a cone is the height divided by 3 times pi r squared, the radius of the base of the cone, I was able to work backwards that something that was about 50 meters high with about 12 million cubic meters in it would be roughly 480 meters in radius. Well, 480 meters in radius works out that I can calculate that in City Skylines terms and get myself a proper radius on the map. So let's go to the map and start doing our math and build out our version of Olympiaburg. Here's my new map, and I'm going to simulate rebuilding a destroyed city here. Where would we want to put the Rubble Mound? Well, it's got to be on the edge of town. So if this is the central area here, then the edge of town would either be to the north, south, east, or west. Well, the mountains on the east and west side make them unsuitable, and this river barrier here with the main road that we want to have here also unsuitable. We could be dumping it all by this waterway here, or I noticed that there's a flat patch over here that looks like an ideal candidate for putting 12 million cubic feet of rubble. If we remember from the earlier calculations, we'll want it to be 50 meters high and 480 meters in diameter. Well, 480 meters in diameter translates to 60 squares, each square being 8 meters across. And if I take this dirt road and stretch it out about 1,200 construction costs, that is 60 squares, and that means 480 meters. And it's hard to talk and measure at the same time, and I'm wondering, why am I trying to be precise? And then I remember, oh yeah, this is a big mountain of rubble. I don't have to be precise. I can be a little sloppy. So here we go. Now, oops, I don't want those. It's a mountain of rubble. I don't want straight edges. I want to have curved edges. This is where people drag rubble to the edge of town and dumped it. And then they got more rubble, loaded it into trucks, dumped it at the edge of town, and repeated until all the rubble was gone. So I should not try to be precise at all. If I am precise, I'm doing rubble wrong. Okay, there we go. We can put 12 million meters of rubble here. Let's now clear out the trees. I'll get the tree brush, and I'll get a large size one here. That's good. Oops, wrong way. We want to clear the trees because we're putting a big pile of rubble here. The reason to have the external bounds defined is so that way we don't accidentally destroy the river as we build this out. We'll stay within this area and we should be fine. I notice I got a little bit of tree area left. We'll get that cleared out. Okay, now let's put in the center of the mound. We're going to get the level terrain tool, and we're going to right click here, and we see it's about 75 meters is the terrain height. Add 50 and I get 125. Hit enter and it takes. I don't want that big of a brush. A smaller one is all I need, and I will build up the middle. Look at that. That looks pretty well built. And now I'm going to delete the roads on the inside. I don't need them anymore. We've already used them to help determine the bounds of this pile of rubble. And as you can see from deleting them, they're actually getting in the way. So we'll clear them out. Now we use the slope tool. It's already set for the terrain height of 125. I will make it a larger one. Maybe not not that large. There we go. And we will now slope up to the middle. There we go. There we go. We can come in from all sides. We can overlap. We can ride over areas we've already been. It's fine. This is a mound of rubble. And it doesn't matter if we're precise. With that done, I'm now going to come back to the level tool, and I'm going to check to make sure this is at around 125. 122, that's close enough. Okay, now I take the Shift Terrain tool, I get a smaller brush, and I reduce the brush strength dramatically. I'm going to take one of my custom brushes here that gives me a nice little item like that, and I'm just going to run it up the middle along the sides here. I want this to be rough looking in places. I don't want this to be a smooth pile of rubble. If we remember from the Olympiaberg, it had some various peaks and troughs in it. So now I'll right click in between the higher areas and make some lower areas. Again, I don't have to be precise. This is a pile of rubble. Eventually people will put grass on top of it, and then trees and bushes will grow. But for the initial placement, it came in kind of bumpy. Now let's go around the edge here and just add a little bit more, increasing it. And now I'm right clicking to decrease. And if I zoom in, that looks like a lot of rubble piles. But it's a bit too regular. So I'm going to take one of my other brushes and I'm going to make it slightly larger. There we go. There we go. I'm going to lift up some areas here. Or drop down an area there. And overall, that looks a little more like I want it to look. Maybe not that brush there, but let's get... Well, this one here could be a good one. There we are. A little bit higher, a little bit higher. And now it's time to soften it. We'll leave it on the low brush strength. I don't want to soften too much. And I'll just, oops, I'll undo that one. I said I didn't want to. I'll just click and not drag. As you can see, when I clicked and dragged, it got bad. But if I just do one click at a time, there we go. We can even it out. That looks like the kind of thing I want to have. There we are. I'm going to leave this road here for now. I may replace it with a trail that comes out a little bit further. For right now, I'll just leave it there. Okay, I've got choices. If I want, I could make it a recent rubble mound, and I could simulate that if I go to the concrete debris. I don't have to type it all out, but concrete debris, the most famous spelling mistake in City Skylines. These are props, and if I lay them down like that, and then like that, and then like that. Oops, let's up the strength there. Whoa, there they are. Ooh, got a lot there. And then this one. I don't even have to waste time copying and pasting and doing things and find it or move it or whatever. I just slap them down like that. And there we go. We've got a lot of concrete debris. There we are. That looks fresh. And if I go with destroyed and take this one here, destroyed props random, this will take all of these, except for the cars, and just lay them on even thicker. And there, we've got even more desolation going on. And if I go to my tree brush and get scrubs and shrubs and make them really dense, here we go, like that. Well, there we are. Oops. Let's turn this off here. Alright, there we are. Well, we've got a lot of mess for us here. That is concrete with rubble and debris everywhere, and the ground sprouting some new life there. So that's if I want to have a fresh mound. Thing is, though, I don't. I want to have something that's clear. So let's select everything except for the nodes and the segments. We'll collect all the other stuff in this area and bulldoze it. There we go. We're going to start over fresh. I want to get something that says a gentle hillside. I'm going to go back to my brush tool, and I have something called Arbor Side. I made this brush myself. What's in it? Well, if I scroll down, you'll see I've got lots of trees in it, hence the name Arbor Side. I've got about 100 types of trees and hedges in there, and I'm quite happy with it. So let's make the size a little larger here. There we go. And let's gently brush in this area. Gently brush in this area. And we don't worry if it goes outside the bounds. That's fine. It'll mingle in with the other trees. Gently brush. Gently brush. There we are. Gently brush. And now I'm going to go back to that scrub and shrub, but instead of it making very dense, we're going to make it rather sparse. And again, we just brush it in. Brush it in. There we go. All right. Let's turn off the tree brush and oops. Did it again. There we go. Okay. And if we look at this, we see the gentle hill and we see a few trees in there. We could put some park paths in on that. And I just want to compare it, if I could, to the Olympiaberg. Let's turn that back on. There we are. Grass, trees, water, path. Grass, trees, water, path. We got it. So if you want to make a pile of rubble at the edge of your town, do the math. Get an area about 480 meters or 60 units in radius, or 120 units across both ways. Make a circle around it. Raise it up the way I did and put in some trees, and you will have what you need. As far as this road goes, I'll probably make this area a park and overlay a park or path on top of this dirt road. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've understood what's going on here, that we've taken the destruction of the bombing and the desolation that's been visited upon these people, and we've turned it into, well, something better, something that can give them hope. I hope you've enjoyed turning that rubble pile into a park, and I hope you feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned as I rebuild this city with history in Cities Timelines.